Okay, let's see how much orchestral music I can write this week. Alright, let's see what I've written. Better than expected.
Writing for orchestra is hard. The character and capabilities of every individual instrument are complex and nuanced, and the number of combinations of instruments possible within an orchestra are endless.
In today's video, we're going to discuss some of the challenges you'll face writing orchestral music as a beginner, intermediate, or experienced composer, and 3 things you should be striving for: clarity, colour, and creativity. 2 C1 Cs, 3 Cs of orchestral writing, if you will.
But before we go any further, do hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe.
As a beginner, it's challenging enough to write an orchestral piece that the performers can play and the audience can follow. At this early stage of your composing journey, your primary goal is simply clarity. Here's some pointers.
First, we recommend you get to know the range of each instrument, the timbre in different parts of their range, and how natural it is to play fast, slow, loud, or soft in the upper and lowermost registers. Try and commit this basic information to memory so looking it up doesn't inhibit your creative flow.
For more advanced information, you can just have an orchestration book on hand, but you still need an awareness of those more advanced concepts, otherwise you won't know when to consult the book. For example, certain trills are difficult or impossible in the extreme ranges of some wind instruments, and on the strings, only certain chords are possible, so you need at least a passing familiarity with string fingerings.
We'll leave links to some of our favourite resources in the description below.
The next tip is plan. Massive projects like writing for the orchestra can and will run away from you if you aren't organised. There are lots of different ways you can plan a piece, so do what works for you and the sort of music you're writing. Personally, I often make sketches in a notebook representing the content of the music over time.
I often use a short score to break the process of composing down, focusing on melody, harmony, and rhythm first, and on orchestration later. I like to start with as little as 2 staves, one for treble and one for bass, and eventually expand out to about 6 or 8, where high and low winds, brass, strings, harp, and percussion all have a stave. After this, I orchestrate it fully. Once you start writing, keep it simple. Yes, there are dozens of musicians in the orchestra, but there are only a few groups of instruments: the strings, the winds, the brass, and the percussion. Try assigning different sections or different layers of material within a section to different families of instruments. Using these primary colours is an easy and reliable way of achieving clarity.
For example, let's look at this phrase adapted from a recent project, which features a simple tune with a chordal accompaniment. The melody sits nicely in the middle register of the oboe, so we can place it there. Chordal accompaniments often sit well on the strings, so that's a perfectly reasonable option. And bringing in the trumpets at the end of the phrase could highlight the cadence. As an intermediate composer, you can start exploring the huge palette of colours that the orchestra provides. If the core instrumental families such as brass, winds and strings are our primary colours, then we can mix them to create secondary colours. For instance, in this excerpt from John Adams's The Chairman Dances, the trumpet tune is doubled by the first violins and the violas, making it lush and helping it carry above the rest of the orchestra.
You can also use orchestration to shape your material, using little additions to emphasize dynamics, articulation, or important points in a phrase. For example, in this excerpt of Galgaloon by Unsuk Chin, string pizzicato is used to pick out notes in the solo trombone melody.
Let's apply some of these ideas to Sanctuary. Given the mellow tone of the music, it might sound nice if the strings and the trumpets use mutes. Adding glockenspiel and pizzicato double bass to the entry of the trumpets could help accentuate that entry. And using harp to double the first violin could add just a little luminescence to the accompaniment.
As an experienced composer, you should have a reasonably in-depth knowledge of instrumental capabilities and of how to combine different parts of the orchestra. You should be able to pretty much achieve the effect you're after most of the time. At this stage, you can really start branching out and experimenting.
Studying scores is one of the best ways to learn and generate ideas. You might identify something you like in another piece and then recontextualize it in your own work.
You can also let the construction of instruments lead your decision-making when thinking up material. For example, each string on a string instrument has a distinct timbre. In the third movement of Ligoti's violin concerto, the strings play long, descending chromatic scales, which would normally be played over multiple strings, but Ligeti requests them to be played on a single string only, honing in on certain timbres and avoiding others. It is also worth noting that each new scale begins from the same or similar point, slightly easing the technical demands on the players.
You could also try scoring something in a way that subverts the normal use of an instrument or combination of instruments.
Then there's extended techniques, which provide a great expansion pack to the orchestra. Just remember, if you're using extended techniques, make your notation of them as user-friendly as possible. All ensembles, but orchestras in particular, have incredibly limited rehearsal time, so you don't want to waste time explaining something that could have been written more intuitively.
Let's keep these things in mind and take Sanctuary up a notch. Although the melody sits well on the oboe, it might be more striking if scored in the uppermost register of the bassoon, a range famously used at the start of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. The music could also use a little more movement. I really love the opening of Lutoslawski's Symphony No. 4, where the composer divides the basses to create a subtle pulse on the same pitch and offsets the harp by a quaver from the violins to create motion. It's an idea that might work well here too. So there you have it, 2C, 1Cs, 3Cs of writing for the orchestra: clarity, colour and creativity. We hope that was interesting and that it might help composers out there set useful goals for their orchestral writing that suit where they are in their composing journey.
If you enjoyed this video, do go check out our interviews and visitors guides to some of our favourite contemporary works. And of course, do like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.